Hello hockey fans, and welcome back to another episode of Buyer's Remorse, the series where we look back at some of the biggest trades, signings, or other acquisitions in league history, but teams didn't quite get what they paid for. In today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at a free agent signing that was pretty regrettable from the get-go, as we explore why the signing of Wade Redden gave the New York Rangers nothing but buyer's remorse. Before we begin, I just want to mention that almost 80% of you who have watched my videos this month have not subscribed to my channel, so if you do enjoy this video and you want to see more like it in the future, consider hitting that subscribe button. It would really help me out a lot, folks. But anyways, on with the video. So let's start by taking a look at the signing itself. On July 1st, 2008, it was announced that the New York Rangers, who had finished the prior 07-08 NHL season at 5th place in the Eastern Conference before a second-round playoff exit to the Pittsburgh Penguins, had signed 31-year-old free agent defenseman Wade Redden to a 6-year, $39 million contract worth an average annual value of $6.5 million a season, equal to 11.5% of the Rangers' $56.7 million salary cap for the upcoming 08-09 season. The Rangers chose to sign Redden because they wanted to bolster their depth on the blue line in order to put themselves in the best position to compete for the Stanley Cup, and they figured what better way to do that than add an experienced, big-bodied defenseman not far removed from the prime years of his career, who was reliable in his own zone and could produce decent scoring numbers on the back end. Now, in order to figure out why the Rangers paid Redden so much money for so long, let's take a look at his NHL career before the signing and see why they deemed him worthy of this price tag. The second overall pick of the 1995 NHL entry draft by the New York Islanders, Wade Redden would never play in a single game on Long Island, as he was traded to Ottawa in January 1996 and debuted with the Senators during the 96-97 season. Over the next 11 years, Redden would suit up exclusively for Ottawa and garner a reputation as a reliable two-way defenseman who could defend his own zone just as well as he could put points on the board, scoring 35 points or more in 7 different seasons and 43 points or more in 4 different seasons, en route to scoring 101 goals and 410 points in 855 regular season games, as well as 45 points in 94 playoff games. These numbers included a career-high 17-goal season in 03-04 and a career-high 50-point season in just 65 games in 05-06. So when Redden was hot, he was right up there alongside some of the best defensemen in the entire National Hockey League. Redden's performance during his time in Canada's capital would also help him earn several awards and accolades, such as being named a 2-time NHL All-Star, although he only played in one of the events due to having the flu, and a joint winner of the 2006 NHL Plus-Minus Award with a plus 35. Not only that, but Redden would be recognised as a leader in the Senators' locker room for much of his tenure in Ottawa, as he was named an alternate captain of the team on October 2nd, 1999, and wore an A on his jersey for the next 9 seasons. After his 50-point year in 05-06, Redden was in need of a new contract, but with Ottawa sitting so close to the salary cap, and with their other top defenseman in Zdeno Chara also needing a new deal, Ottawa were forced to make a big choice. Either keep Wade Redden or keep Zdeno Chara. After much discussion and deliberation, the Senators decided to stick with Redden, signing him to a 2-year, $13 million contract on June 30th, 2006. I bet they wish they'd signed Chara in hindsight, eh folks? This deal would make Redden the highest paid player on the Senators roster and set expectations very high from both media and fans alike for the alternate captain to produce another impressive season. Unfortunately, Redden would fail to live up to the hype, as his next few seasons would be far from his best. The Canadian defenseman would score just 36 points in 64 games during the first year of his deal, and just 38 points in 80 games during the second, a far cry from his 50-point season just 2 years prior. These disappointing numbers, coupled with the $13 million he was paid to produce them, would prompt the Senators to explore the possibility of trading Redden in order to free themselves from his lofty cap hit. However, when the Senators had found a suitable trade with the San Jose Sharks in February 2008, Redden exercised the no-trade clause in his contract and the deal collapsed. Redden declined the trade as he was adamant that he wanted to remain in Ottawa and help the team win the Stanley Cup, especially since they had come so incredibly close during their trip to the 2007 Stanley Cup Finals the year prior. Despite these wishes, the Senators still weren't able to clinch their franchise's first championship in the final year of his deal, as they were swept in the first round by the Pittsburgh Penguins during the 2008 playoffs. Though it was reported earlier in the season that Redden was willing to take a hometown discount on his next contract if it meant that he could stay with the Senators, by the end of the year, all signs pointed to Redden parting ways with the Canadian franchise. Just a few months later, he signed with the Rangers. Unlike some of the other signings we've looked at so far in this series, I can't really wrap my head around why the Rangers made this move. Sure, Redden had scored multiple 40-plus point seasons, was a reliable player in his own zone, and had been a locker room leader for many years in Ottawa, but in his 2 years before joining the Rangers, when he was earning the exact same yearly salary as his deal with New York, he had failed to live up to his cap hit. If the Rangers had signed Redden to this deal after his 50-point year in the summer of 2006, then I'd understand it, but they didn't. And besides, New York already had a 30 to 40-point two-way defenseman on their roster in the form of Michael Roosevelt. They didn't need another one, especially for $6.5 million a year. After all, just because you spend the most money and sign all the marquee free agents doesn't mean you're guaranteed a Stanley Cup championship, something that would take the Rangers a little while to figure out. Surely the Rangers could have put this chunk of their salary cap towards acquiring a more offensively minded top 2 defenseman via free agency or even a trade to help balance the depth on their blue line a little more. I guess they were hoping that a fresh start and a change of scenery would provide Redden the perfect storm to get back to his 50-point caliber from a few years prior, and they were willing to splash out the cash to ensure that Redden wouldn't be swayed to take his talents elsewhere. Now that we know why the Rangers signed Redden, let's take a look at what happened after he joined the team and see why the Broadway Blue Shirts would regret this move for many years. Once he had signed his contract with New York, Wade Redden would suit up in his debut game with the Rangers on October 4th, 2008 in the first game of a home-and-home against the Tampa Bay Lightning. One night later, on October 5th, he would score his first goal and register his first assist with the team. Unfortunately for both Redden and the Rangers though, this would be one of his only highlights during his debut year on Broadway. Though the Rangers had hoped Redden's production would bounce back thanks to a change of scenery, his numbers only continued to decline, as he scored just 26 points in 81 games during the 08-09 NHL season, his worst production since his sophomore year in the league almost a decade ago. If that wasn't bad enough, Redden's second year in New York would be far more disappointing, as he was only able to muster 14 points in 75 games, the worst single-season numbers of his entire 13-year NHL career. With just 40 points in his first 156 games with New York, and having earned $13 million in the process, the Rangers realised that signing Redden to his lengthy, expensive contract had been a mistake, so they decided to act quickly before things got even worse. On September 25th, 2010, the Rangers announced that they had placed Redden on waivers and were assigning him to the AHL's Hartford Wolfpack for the upcoming 10-11 season. Not only would the Rangers open up a spot in their top 4 and give another player the opportunity to play better than Redden, but they would also shave a large chunk of Redden's cap hit off their books, meaning they could fit under the salary cap with their recent off-season signings. Though he would seriously contemplate retirement after his demotion, Redden would ultimately decide to report to the Wolfpack and suit up in the minors for the first time in his pro career, becoming the highest paid AHL player ever in the process. Redden would end up spending his next 2 seasons with the Rangers minor league affiliate, where he scored 62 points in 119 games and earned another $13 million for his efforts. Despite putting up pretty respectable numbers, Redden's failure to produce when he was previously on New York's roster, coupled with his behemoth cap hit, meant that his last game as a Ranger was likely already behind him, since he hadn't played well enough to force himself onto the team, and he would put the Rangers over the salary cap if they called him up to the NHL. Now, if you thought the drama and controversy was done there, oh boy would you be mistaken. When the 12-13 season was put on hold due to a lockout, Redden, who still had another 2 years left on his contract, wasn't reassigned to the AHL during the labour dispute, meaning the Rangers didn't have to pay his salary until the negotiations came to an end. Oh, you sneaky little buggers, New York. When a new collective bargaining agreement was eventually ratified, a new rule was implemented in which teams were forced to count an AHL player's salary above $900,000 against their NHL cap hit, meaning the Rangers would no longer be able to bury Redden's contract in the minors. However, in order to help teams get under the new salary cap, each franchise could buy out 2 contracts in their books for up to 2/3 of their remaining salary. Since these compliance buyouts could not be used on a player who had suffered a hockey-related injury, the Rangers then instructed Redden to not report to training camp in either the NHL or the AHL in order to keep him healthy until his contract was taken care of. When the NHL Players Association caught wind of the Rangers and the Montreal Canadiens doing this with Redden and Scott Gomez respectively, the NHLPA wished to make a slight adjustment to the buyout rules due to their concern that these players would be forced to spend an entire year away from hockey and the impact that that might have on their future employment in the league. Not long after, the CBA was revised to allow teams to use one of their buyouts before the lockout-shortened 12-13 season got underway, provided the players still received their intended salary for the year. With this new clause added, the Rangers quickly placed Redden on waivers and bought out the final 2 years of his contract on January 17, 2013, meaning the Canadian defenseman became an unrestricted free agent for the first time since 2008, and he would receive a paycheck from the Rangers every year until 2015, despite no longer playing for the team. So for $39 million, Wade Redden gave the New York Rangers 40 points in 156 NHL games, 2 years in the minors, and a buyout of the final 2 years of his contract that meant that the team continued to pay him for another 2 seasons after he left the organisation. If that isn't the epitome of buyer's remorse, I don't know what is. Following his buyout from the Rangers, Redden would quickly find a place on a new NHL roster, as he signed a 1-year contract with the St. Louis Blues on January 18, 2013, a single day before the lockout-shortened season was set to get underway. The Canadian defenseman would make his debut with St. Louis on January 24th against the Nashville Predators, his first NHL game in 3 years, and played the opening 3 months of the season with the Blues, which included his 1,000th NHL game against the Detroit Red Wings on February 7th. After just 23 games and 5 points in Missouri, Redden was traded to the Boston Bruins on April 3, 2013, in exchange for a 2014 conditional 7th-round draft pick. Redden would then spend the rest of the season and the playoffs with the Bruins, scoring 2 points in 6 regular season games and 2 points in 5 playoff games, as Boston made it all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals, but they were defeated in 6 games by the Chicago Blackhawks. Oh, so close yet so far. Once his contract had expired, and with little interest in signing him for the 13-14 season given his minimal production the year prior, Wade Redden officially announced his retirement from playing professional hockey. This meant that the 37-year-old defenseman finished his 14-year NHL career with 109 goals and 457 points in 1,023 regular season games, as well as 49 points in 106 playoff games. After calling it a day on his career, Redden would take a few years away from the sport and continue to cash in those yearly buyout checks from the Rangers until June 27, 2016, when he joined the Nashville Predators organization as an assistant director of player development, a job he served for 3 years until the end of the 18-19 season. So, in conclusion, when the New York Rangers signed defenseman Wade Redden in July of 2008, they were hoping that the former 2nd overall draft pick could bounce back from a few disappointing seasons and return to his 50-point caliber of years prior in order to help New York make a run at a championship. What actually happened was Redden produced some of, if not the worst numbers of his entire career in his first 2 seasons, was demoted to the AHL for the next 2 seasons before having the final 2 years of his contract bought out and moving on to another team, where the Rangers would continue to pay him for another 2 years after his departure. If I was the Rangers, I sure hope that I kept my receipt, because I definitely want a refund. And that's how the free agent signing of Wade Redden gave the New York Rangers all the buyer's remorse. What do you guys think about Redden's tenure with the New York Rangers? Also, is there another free agent signing, trade, or front office hiring that you want me to look at as part of this series? Let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear what you guys think. But thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you have enjoyed. Please feel free to like, subscribe, share, or watch some of my other videos. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye. A big thank you to Antti Hannanen, Chris Gadsby, Connor B, John Plomin, Jordan Whitehead, Paul Mallia, Roman from London, The Legacy and Worthless Pieces, as well as a huge thank you to Let's Talk Hockey for helping support this video via Patreon. If you too want to help support the channel a little bit further and get a shout out at the end of every future video, make sure you head over to patreon.com/oddmanrush and become a patron today.